Hi Internet, this is going to be a three-part video about how this little doggy here works in EZPZ Interaction Toolkit. So the first part will be just showing you it working. Second part will be to show you how you can set this up in your own scenes. And the third part will be me explaining how it actually works. So I guess you can just skip to the bits that you actually want. Okay, so what's the little doggy? So little doggy is just a Navmesh agent that's able to do basic things like play fetch. So you can kind of see that I'm picking up the stick from its mouth and then I'm throwing it and then it's picking it up and bringing it back to me. You can also see that it's changing its pose depending on its movement state. So when it's moving, it stands up, and when it stays, it sort of sits down here a little bit. So next thing, what can we do? I can tell it to stay. Actually, I'm just going to do this, and then it'll continuously follow me if I don't tell it to stay. So if I wanted it to not follow me, I'll just click on the stay button, and then it will stay. And if I want it to follow me again, I just pick up the stick, and then now it wants to pick up the stick and then give it back to me. All right, so that's how it works basically. How can you set this up in your own scene from scratch? So I guess what we'll do is let's just make a new scene, and then let's keep that empty, so just completely empty, and let's add a little plane here so we can make a floor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the layer of this plane to be environment. This is going to be really important later on, so you need to make sure that where the dog should walk should be on the environment layer. Okay, now we're going to need to put in a player object here so we can actually navigate the scene. So let's just go to the prefabs in EZPZ Interaction Toolkit. Just choose any one of these. I guess we'll just choose this one. So now we can see again and navigate the world. This plane is a little bit too small, so we're just going to make it a little bit bigger for us to navigate. Okay, next thing is we'll put in the little doggies and the stick accessory. So let's just go into the movables folder, and it is the moving character doggo. We'll put that just here, and then we'll also want its stick. All right, so the issue with this is once we press play, it doesn't actually move. The reason why it doesn't move is because the dog is what you call a Navmesh agent. So it's a movable character. So the thing with Unity is it has its own special artificial intelligence package, and the moving characters, the walking characters, is part of that package. So what we can do is we can go ahead and add a Navmesh. So just go to AI and say Navmesh surface. So the Navmesh basically is short for navigation mesh, and that is what the dog walks on. That's how it manages the logic. So for us to be able to do something, we need to be able to bake this Navmesh. So if we just go ahead and press bake, you can see the blue stuff. The blue areas is basically where the dog is able to navigate. But the thing is, you might have noticed something weird. On the dog and the player object itself, we have some gray bits that didn't get colored blue. That's because the object collection, when we do the baking of the Navmesh, included everything. We don't want to include everything. We only need to include the bits where the dog can actually navigate. So let's just say nothing, and then include environment, and then let's just go ahead and rebake that. Go bake. Okay, so it's still not quite done yet. So the next thing we need to do with the dog is we need to tell it where to go. So you can see that we have some empty placements in this alternative destinations. So what we can do there is we'll just put us as the player into element 1 or alternative destinations, and then put the stick at element 2, and then we'll get it to chase the stick to begin with, like that. So I guess you just need to rewind that if you didn't get that, but basically this is just setting it up so it will behave in the same way as it does in the example scene. So just go ahead and press play. Now the dog moves because it's navigating through the nav mesh, and it's now doing what it did in the scene. Okay, so I guess that's the end of part 2, how to set up something from scratch. Now I'm going to explain how it works. So part 3 begins. Okay, so how does this work? Well, the moving characters in general has this component called NMA walk towards. NMA basically just is a Navmesh agent. That's like Navmesh agent. So this is the Unity component that allows characters or objects to move around in this blue area, this blue Navmesh bit. And this NMA walk towards script is something that I wrote that talks to this thing that manages where it goes. So you can see at the very basic level that it will, any Navmesh agent will walk to this destination. So that's basically the current code. So if I were to say that there was going to be like a, I don't know, like another object in here, let's do a cylinder. And I said that the dog should walk towards that cylinder. The dog would walk towards that cylinder because that's those are just my instructions. So if I were to move the cylinder around, it would move to that cylinder, provided of course that it's actually in the blue area. If you put it outside the blue area, it's gonna try its best, but it's not able to go beyond the nav mesh. That's why it's called a Navmesh agent. So you'll need to extend the geometry there and then rebake the nav mesh. But using this principle, just gonna go delete that. We can pretty much do the same thing with the stick. So if we were to say that the moving character goes into the stick, or goes towards the stick, it's just gonna go ahead and go to the stick. So now it's picking up the stick. So let's have a look at that closely, more closely, because like the picking up of the stick is not really part of the walk towards script. It has some special things. So the way it works, I'm just going to do it again. You might have noticed a box just in front of the dog. The little box is the thing that picks up the stick. It's basically a detector area for us to be able to detect the stick, and it's set up in such a way that it would actually snap. It'll snap onto the mouth. So essentially, this is the sticker upper is a magnet snapper, and it's just set up to have its mouth point, its snapping point to the mouth. So it looks like the dog is holding it in its mouth, but basically it's just a snapping point. And you can see we have a couple of events that talk to the nav mesh, to the walk towards script. So you can see that we have like when it snaps, we say set destination to be destination 1, and when we release the snap, it says set destination to destination 2. So basically it's talking back to this component here, and essentially what it's saying is when the dog picks up the stick, set destination 1, which is like these alternative destinations in element 1. And we can see here that in slot number 1, in element number 1, we set it up to be us, the player. So the effect of that is once the dog picks up the stick, it'll move back towards us. So it's picked up the stick, now it's walking towards us. Just have a look at what changes in the destination. So when I pick up the stick, so note in the destination to the walk towards script is it's now the doggo stick. So if I move around, it's actually following the doggo stick, it's not following me. So then if we just throw that, it's gonna go to that doggo stick, and you can see snap, it changes, and then the cycle begins again. So that's essentially how it works. It's we use the set destination function to be setting these preset destinations here. That's why we had to tell it where to go at the very beginning of the video. Okay, so what if we don't want it to follow the stick and just kind of sit there? Well, we use the same mechanism. We just press stay, and then let's have a look at how this button works. So this stay button is a button interactor, but it's the same idea. We just go back to the walk towards script and say set destination 0. And you can see back in the destination list, in the alternative destinations list, destination 0 is actually the dog itself. So the effect of that is we set the destination to be yourself, which means that you basically stop because the destination is yourself. And that's it. What else is there to talk about this? Okay, so you might have noticed that the dog changes its pose depending on whether it's moving or not. And that's these events here. So essentially, we have this event called onArrive. This event gets triggered when the walk agent, the Navmesh agent, arrives at its destination. So you can just see that it's set to turn on the sitting graphics and then turn off the walking graphics. And then vice versa when it's on first move. So on first move is when it actually starts moving again. So this gets onArrive gets triggered when it stops, and on first move gets triggered when it starts walking. And all it is, you can probably see here, is just two sets of graphics. You got like one for the walking and then one for the sitting, and it just gets turned on and off depending on the situation. And it really is just as simple as that. Okay, that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching.